Thanks, thanks, Brenda. Appreciate you making this happen. And again, welcome to all of our attendees that have joined us so far. If you are looking for the School Vision Screening Advocacy webinar, you're in the right place. And that means you are a vision screening advocate. And we not only welcome you, but we thank you for your interest in the program that Lions Around Oregon provide to schools in literally every corner of the state, but also on the status of the Oregon Department of Education School Vision Screening Fund. And some of you joined us about a month, maybe that was 5 or even 6 weeks ago, when we were told by the Department of Education that there was a likelihood that the School Vision Screening Fund could be reduced or even eliminated due to the understandable budget cuts that the state of Oregon is facing right now. In fact, today the Ways and Means Education Subcommittee had a meeting and took public testimony that we participated in, hearing about some amazing programs around the state that unfortunately are at risk of being reduced or even eliminated. So we'll get to that today also. I want to introduce my co-panelist, one of my colleagues, Mr. Brad King, who is one of our lead vision screening coordinators at the Oregon Lion Sight and Hearing Foundation. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Doug.
And also joining us from Romaine Freeze Lobbying, Mike Freeze, who is going to give you some real insight into the state of Oregon budget cut process and the status of the ODE School Vision Screening Fund. Thank you, Mike, and welcome. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so super quick overview, and probably every single person that is participating in this is aware that the Lions of Oregon have really been the leader in providing state-of-the-art vision screening in Oregon schools. I think we have the slide that even kind of illustrates the impact that we currently have. Thanks, Brenda. The different colored pinpoints represent different staff members that we have. So the purpose of the slide is really for you to see the volume of school screening events that take place really in every county and in every part of Oregon. Last year, we did screen over 600 Oregon schools. About 180,000 Oregon students were screened for vision health issues. Probably all of you are aware that we utilize state-of-the-art equipment that can identify up to 13 different vision health issues. And largely, we were able to accomplish this due to the fund at the Oregon Department of Education that Lions have worked so hard to advocate for and to create. So one of the big issues, and there's really kind of two separate issues. There's the fund that makes this possible, what you see there, but then there's also the reality of whether or not outside entities such as Lions can even enter schools this year because of social distancing guidelines that are, as I speak, being worked on and developed by local school districts. Here's where I'm going to hand it over to Brad, who's going to give you some insight into how our no-touch, state-of-the-art screening methodology is being refined and modified so that we can adhere to social distancing guidelines. So Brad, why don't you take it away and share with us what we have planned for the school year, if and when we can enter schools to help kids with vision screening.
Okay, Doug, thanks. Thank you everyone for coming to see us today. Just to let you know, there are already over 525 schools that are scheduled for screening. So that's on the positive side. We're looking at how schools are actually going to take place, how many students are going to be there at any given time. And so this is a pretty fluid situation. We took this very seriously as soon as we could and started developing a safe methodology for doing these screenings that's CDC compliant and that schools and healthcare people will appreciate. You see a picture of me there from a little while ago, getting my temperature taken as I entered the building by this young lady. That's actually here at Legacy Good Samaritan in the building where we're located. But this is probably one of the issues that we'll be facing every day entering schools, where people are going to get screened as they come in. So we're going to make sure that our screening staffers, such as myself and all my partners throughout Oregon, are feeling good on the day, and that we're going to be able to enter the school, get our temperatures taken. We worked real hard messed around a little bit with a couple of contraptions. Doug can attest to that, and have actually developed a good, safe, secure 6-foot screening methodology that is CDC compliant. You'll see on the right-hand side of your photograph there a tripod and dolly with the spot on top and a long handle attached to it. You can see the picture in there. That's me and Ella from a couple of months ago in our earliest tests. Well, the picture with the tripod is pretty much what we are looking at right now. It's a good methodology, it's secure, and it keeps us in good social distance with the kids. I'm going to ask Kareth to step up right now, and I've got this right behind me here. I'm going to apologize for the condition of the room. This is the team workroom, so we work in here, so it's not the cleanest place. Kareth, you're going to need to step up a little closer, about 6 feet away. Can you get a little bit closer? Let's see. There you are. So, as you can see, we're 6 feet apart, 3 feet in front of the spot and 3 feet behind. And let me find you here. There we go. Our handles work pretty good, except that I got a chair in the way. There we are. And I just screened Kareth's vision. That's all the time it took. I'm not going to get close enough so that you can really see what's going on, but we did get a good screening. Kareth was not wearing her glasses. She wanted to make it easy for us. But that's what our vision screening model is going to look like. We're never going to get within 6 feet of any student. You see that I'm wearing PPE. I've got my mask on. I've got my gloves on. I've got my glasses on. We're going to absolutely maintain CDC compliant methodology. So, Doug, back to you.
Brad and Kareth, thanks for providing that overview. We wanted to start off with that just because we understand that that there are, well, many people that are saying, well, why are you working so hard to preserve this fund with COVID-19 and we can't even go into schools? So there were some guidelines that I believe were released last night by the Department of Education that do illustrate that vision screening can take place as far as the Department of Education goes. I'm probably going to let Mike expand on that a little bit more. So there's really two parallel issues here. There's, can we, per Department of Education guidelines, even enter the schools? And if we can, is there even the funding to make it possible? So Brad, thanks for addressing the social distancing aspect of it. Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you now and ask you to give us a little bit of insight on the status of the ODE fund. Even feel free to give a little bit of an overview in terms of just state of Oregon budget cut process so that people can understand that. And I know we'll have a lot of questions that Brenda will help facilitate and moderate. So Mike, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Doug, and thanks, Brad, for that illustration. I think it is helpful and important. As Doug mentioned, there are two paths that are sort of happening at the same time. One related to the budget, and the other related to school regulations going into the fall. So let me just start with the school regulations because I think it's probably less critical than the budget conversation right now for you all. Department of Education, and this is an iterative process, has been trying to develop regulations and guidance for schools for opening, frankly, schools in the fall, and that still has not been determined. There's still, I think, a lot of movement there. I just learned this morning Washington may go 100% virtual for their public schools this year. Oregon's still considering that, although it seems less likely that they would move that direction right now, but rather make sure that schools are prepared to go there if they need to in the future. Director Gill is, I think, a good fan of what we do, what you all do, and he is trying to, I think, accommodate us where he can. In a recent conversation with him, he said that they're still working on the regulations, and we should expect to see some updates again sometime in mid-August. So we plan on meeting with him again between now and then to see if we can at least preserve the opportunity to do these screenings into the next school year, and then we may have to further refine how and under what conditions those can occur in coordination with schools. So that is an ongoing effort, but probably not as critical for you all to weigh in yet. But maybe we may be asking you to later in mid-August. So, but let me talk about the budget, because I think this is where decisions are being made right now and over the next week, where you can be very, very helpful. I think everybody knows and is aware that the state is, under incredible budget pressure, and we expect a shortfall this biennium well above $1 billion, and that's requiring the legislature to try to rebalance the budget this fiscal year where they can. So over the last 3 days, it's today, it was yesterday, and tomorrow, Ways and Means subcommittees are hearing a number of different budget items and trying to allocate who gets what cuts and where and when. So far, the co-chairs of Ways and Means have said that they want to cut about $400 million. In that discussion is $800,000 from the vision screening program. It's unclear right now whether or not that's a suspension, or it's a reduction, or it's getting rid of it. But what we know is from ODE that even with an $800,000 cut, that would leave approximately $440,000 to administer vision screenings in the next school year. So that's the good news, if that's the case. But what we need you to do, I think, are a few things. One is make sure that your area legislators understand that the Lions can continue to do vision screenings and meet CDC guidance, and that it is a public health issue, just like vision screenings, and that we can do that responsibly and appropriately, and help kids. Two, that the legislature needs to preserve as much money as they can. We understand that there are dire budget circumstances in the state, but with that said, we don't want to eliminate a program that is really critical for children's health. And three, just press them to make sure that not only to make money available but to encourage ODE to make sure that these vision screenings can continue. But again, right now it's more of a budget conversation. You can have a lot of impact. You have had a lot of impact in securing money in Salem, and so now it's just a matter of let's try to maintain as much of it as we can. And I think there's some continuity here that's important from one school year to the next, and let's make sure that that we don't have a hole here for the 2020-2021 school year. So is that kind of what you were looking for, Doug?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's great. And since we now have that slide up on the screen for everybody to see, the email address for staff at the Ways and Means Subcommittee, perhaps, Mike, you could give just kind of a little bit of an overview of what is it that this Ways and Means Education Subcommittee is deciding right now, or what is it that I can say to them that might help save or preserve some of this fund? Because we've got that email address up there. We want people to use it. What should they say to this committee?
Thanks, Doug. So first, what the Ways and Means Committee does is they set state budgets. So generally, the governor makes recommendations, and then the Ways and Means Committee actually allocates the money. This is sort of an opposite issue, where Ways and Means is now considering cutting money as opposed to just allocating money. And so what the Ways and Means co-chairs have done is they've said, here are recommended cuts, budget cuts, and they're roughly $400 million. And then what they've done is they've handed those off to the subcommittees, and Education Subcommittee being the relevant one here, to evaluate those cuts and make sure that those are appropriate. So the subcommittee is taking testimony on whether or not the $800,000 budget cut to this program makes sense. And I think what we can do is email letters to that web address that you see on your screen that says, it's important to understand that while the state is making difficult choices, that these vision screenings are incredibly important. So please make sure that we maintain, to the degree possible, all money for those vision screening programs, and make sure that there's direction to the Department of Education that you want those to continue to happen during the school year. So that's really the Ways and Means subcommittees now are making recommendations to the full committee on where those budget cuts should be made. And it's really, really important right now to stress how important this program is to the Ways and Means subcommittee as we continue to talk to the full Ways and Means committee, which will make final decisions and vote on final decisions here in early to mid-August during a special session.
Okay, very good. And that special session, I understand that they have some target dates of possibly, unless it's changed, possibly August 10th through the 12th or so. However, we really can't wait until then to contact this Ways and Means subcommittee. The time is now to send emails to this committee. And Mike, if I understand correctly, I think there's still a 48-hour window where this committee will be accepting public testimony or input from residents of Oregon on this issue?
Yep. So you have really through tomorrow, I think, to submit testimony. And so if you don't have anything prepared right now, it's okay. It's something that you can work on and submit tomorrow. So, Brad?
I actually listened to the end of the subcommittee meeting, and they don't take the weekend into consideration, so they'll be taking that through Monday.
That's awesome. Great.
Good to know. Thanks, Brad. Okay, so big emphasis here on, again, the adherence to social distancing. We're not just chasing a bunch of government money just for the sake of being able to have it. We first of all wanted to make sure that we can safely, for students, for school staff, for our own staff, that we can enter schools and provide these screenings in a way that, as it's been said, is consistent with CDC guidelines. We feel good about that. I hope you agree that our methodology should work and it should be safe for everybody. In terms of the actual funding and the actual screening itself, and Brad, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe we've had over 450 schools have already reached out to us to schedule screening events for this coming school year.
What I've heard in the last several weeks is over 525. So
okay, so it's gone up.
Schools still want what we have.
Yeah, and we understand that every school district is going to look a little bit different in terms of what percentage of the time students are learning online versus how many days out of the week that they're going into the school. We have seen the plans for many school districts, and it appears that many will be adopting kind of a hybrid type of a schedule where alphabetically, I don't know, students with last names A through H perhaps will be attending school Tuesday, Thursday, and I through Z might be there on Monday and Wednesday, just hypothetically. So we understand that we may have to visit a school twice to capture all of those students. So we actually understand that our costs for this are going to go up. My point being that we're not dependent 100% on public funding. We will aggressively seek private sector funding also to make this happen where we are able to visit schools and where we're able to screen kids. So I think that's a little bit of an overview of the adherence to social distancing. Thanks, Brad. Mike, we appreciate so much you providing some insight on the rebalancing of the budget issue. I hope everybody does understand that you can make a difference. Sending an email to the staff there at the Ways and Means Education Subcommittee, it will be read, it will be heard, and I do believe that the more that people reach out to that committee, it can make a difference, at the very least, of preserving some of the funds it can make it possible for us to help more kids be able to see the words on the page in front of them and the words on the computer screen as they're learning at home. We know that kids that don't read at grade level, at say 3rd grade, these kids just don't progress academically. So this program really is critical to help kids stay on track academically and to give them the best opportunity for success in the classroom. Brad, Mike, anything else that you'd like to add before we thank people and move on?
Well, I would say thanks for all of your great support up until this time. Continue to do that. Contact the Joint Ways and Means Education Subcommittee. Contact your legislators, your senators, your representatives. You're their constituents, and they're there to hear from you. What's important to you and what's important to the school students of Oregon to reach their futures. If Johnny can't see, Johnny can't read. If Johnny can't read, Johnny can't learn.
If I may, this is Brenda there. I wanted to pass along some of the questions because they were related to that. So thank you, Brad. One of the questions was, who are the co-chairs of the subcommittee? And a similar question is, are the senators and House representatives who sit on the Ways and Means subcommittee from districts where Lions are able to call on them as constituents? So I'll put that off to you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, you want to address that?
Yeah, hey Doug, what I'm wondering is, can we send out a list of legislators? Because I think both the subcommittee and the full committee matter here, and we can and then we can include the email addresses that way. So if folks are interested in looking to see if their legislator is on the committee or not.
Yes, absolutely. Tell you what, okay, so Brendan will help. Yeah, so at the conclusion of this webinar, we will send every participant the roster of that Ways and Means Education Subcommittee. I think there's 7 or 8 members of that committee. The co-chairs are Lou Frederick from Portland and Susan McLean from Forest Grove. They are the 2 co-chairs. This is a joint committee, so there's senators and representatives, and of course there's Democrats and Republicans. There are Lions certainly that are constituents of every member of that committee. And then we do plan on sending out a blast to everybody that we have in our database, asking for folks to reach out not only to the members of the subcommittee, but there is a question saying, hey, should we send letters to both the Ways and Means Committee and our own legislators? And the answer would be yes. I'm a big believer in that in most cases, there's no such thing as over-communicating. And Mike, I'll have you correct me here if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the more that legislators, regardless of if they're on the Ways and Means Subcommittee or not, the more that legislators hear from us, the better chances we have of making a difference here. Mike, you want to either speak more to that or correct me where I might be off base?
No, you're right. It's absolutely true. The more that we weigh in here, the better our odds are of success. So, I think legislators, it matters if you're from their district, but also the volume of communications matter. So, I think as long as if we can get everybody that's on this webinar to submit a testimony, that will make a big difference in recommendation to the full committee.
Great. And then, Brenda, I'm trying to scroll through the questions right now, but you're better at this than I am, so feel free to chime in.
No worries. And then we just got another question that is there a different template letter for legislators who are not on the Ways and Means?
I don't think that you'd have to do any kind of different letter. You would just address it differently. And obviously, if they're not on the subcommittee, they're not making the same recommendations. But certainly that person, whoever the legislator is that you're emailing, could communicate to a member of either of their party that's on the committee or to the co-chairs directly. And that's something that happens all the time. So you could certainly include, and maybe my recommendation is encourage that legislator to talk to the co-chairs about holding this program harmless to the degree possible.
Yeah, and let me add really quickly, thanks, Mike, that I'm a big believer is that the key is communicating your desire as a constituent. And I'm hoping that people don't feel that they have to write some real lengthy, scientifically backed letter to persuade. Remember that when we passed this legislation in 2000, well, both in 2017 and then when it was continued in 2019, we had unanimous support. So the issue itself isn't so much, well, it's not a controversial issue at all. It's just a matter of the funding, can it be there? So the more that our elected officials hear from constituents saying, please preserve the school vision screening fund, and then feel free to, insert your own beliefs, whether it's, hey, learning is 80% visual, we need to preserve this fund, or students must read at grade level in 3rd grade, and with this fund, we can help make that happen. Use your own belief as Lions, as school nurses, as educators to insert into the body of your email. But the main thing is for, again, our elected officials to see that, wow, there is a high level of support out there for this fund. And I'm going to pass this along to my colleague that is on this committee.
Thank you. So one of the next questions, or actually more of a compliment, comes from Kelly. And Kelly says, thank you for working so hard to find a way to socially distance the screening process. And I know one of the other questions that we did have, and we touched on a little earlier, but maybe expand on that in regards to volunteers and what we might be seeing with volunteers this year.
I really appreciate the compliment. Thank you. And boy, the question is such an important one. Now, we do know that there's a very real possibility that even if the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation staff will able to gain entry into the schools, there's a very real possibility that volunteers will not be allowed into school districts for at least some part, if not the entirety of this school year. And that's one of the guidelines that, to my understanding, is in the Oregon Department of Education new guidelines for this year. I don't know that it's necessarily been formally approved yet, but I think that is one of the strong considerations, is to not allow volunteers into schools. We don't know exactly what the definition of volunteer is yet. The young lady that you see on the screen right now is a high school student from Salem Kaiser School District. What we will need to find out are the high school, I think it's health careers students, are they considered volunteers or not? They provide a huge role in this process. And Brad, we can have you talk to the reality of what it will be like if our school vision screening staff are working solo, and the challenges that will be. I understand that we would prefer to have volunteers, but of course, we have to abide by whatever guidelines are handed down by the Department of Education. Brad, you want to talk about what we're prepared to do if you're going into school solo?
If we're going into school solo, it's going to take all day, and we're prepared for that. Your field staff from the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation is one of the most dedicated groups of people I've ever been connected to. However, we are going to seek as much help as we can get. It might be classified staff from the school. It might be administrative staff from the school. I would just love to sit down with the principal, the vice principal, and the janitor and screen 250 kids an hour, if that's what it takes. I'm here to tell you that these high school kids that we work with all over the Lower Valley here are spectacular. They're completely adept at the technology. They're happy. Look at that student that's on that photograph. They enjoy what they do, and the elementary school kids just dig them a ton. Here's what I say every day: we'll make it work.
Great. Thanks, Brad. I hope we addressed that question regarding volunteers. If there's more information regarding volunteers that you would like, feel free to reshape your question or ask that again. And Brendan, do we have any other questions at all?
We did get another one from Charlene. Charlene was asking if we are reaching out to school nurses. And I did mention that, of course, we work very closely with school nurses, but I wanted to give Brad a chance to talk maybe a little bit about our relationship with them, the different school districts.
We have an excellent relationship with individual school nurses and collectively through the Oregon School Nurses Association. We've got a tremendous number of friends, hardworking school nurses out there that we connect with. I've been talking to some of them during the spring to get some data so that everybody can get their budget squared away from the prior year. And they always look forward to hearing from us. We have, just like I said, just great friendships with them. And we deal with them a considerable amount in our scheduling. So Matt and our new staffer, Phoenix, have been dealing with them. And we continue to talk to them as much as we can. We like them a lot.
And a new question that just came in, also from Mike. Mike is asking for Mike, is the state's projected $1 billion shortfall for the 2021 state fiscal year? What percentage of the state's budget does $1 billion represent?
It's a good question. I'm trying to remember what the total budget is. For general fund, which is where we get the revenue to use in this program, it's somewhere around 20 billion. So, I mean, it's, well, $1 billion is what, 5%? Am I right there? So anyway, it's something like that. But I'd have to go look to be sure. The state budget's actually bigger than that because you have lottery, you have federal aid, you have other things, but from the general fund side, I'm pretty sure it's close to 20 billion.
Hey, Mike, on the Oregon Department of Education front, if I understood correctly, and Brad, you participated in the committee meeting today also, and what I heard was that, at one point we were hearing that they were considering cuts anywhere from 5 up to 17% for the Department of Education. Today, I heard cuts anywhere, and here's where I could be wrong, so please help me, anywhere from 2.4 to like 4.5% or so. Is that consistent with what you two heard today?
Yeah, I think each agency's, the governor asked for across the board cuts anywhere between, 5 to 17%. Those have been drawn back quite a bit, partially because the legislature can use reserves. Also, because if you did across the board cuts, the reductions were greater because you'd lose some federal support for certain programs. So from the Department of Education, the goal was to maintain, I think, as much of the budget as possible for normal operating expenses. But there is, and I can't remember the percentage reduction in ed across the board in the ed department. In ODE.
Great, Mike. It's really helpful to have you part of this process. Thank you for that information. Brenda, any other questions that we have?
We did get more of a comment in this one. Steve commented that noting each school district could have different requirements and even stricter guidelines than maybe the Department of Education is going to have available. And I did mention in a response to him, but just for our audience to hear, we are tracking those requirements. So right now, as we learn of a district's requirements and what they might be planning to do for their school year, at least initially, we are building a spreadsheet that tracks that so that we are informing our field staff and making sure we can meet every one of the requirements that they may have for us. And then I'll let the group answer more. Thank you.
Well, Brenda, thanks for sharing that. It's also an opportunity to invite our audience to share local school district guidelines as you learn of them. Please share those with us. I think it was 2 days ago, we were fortunate to receive some of the information on what looked to be a webinar that I think was it the Tiger Tualatin School District that presented to parents. And it's just great to get that insight as early as possible so we can take that into consideration as we're developing our methodology for this year. Brad, did you have something that you wanted to add to that, or I thought I saw something on
no, news comes in virtually every day about specific school districts and how they're looking at formulating the oncoming year. And like Brenda said, we're keeping track of that, and anybody that has any information, please do communicate that with us.
Yeah, it's a logistical challenge, to have a spreadsheet that has about 100 different or so school districts.
140.
140. Thank you. Yeah. So the more information that we get from different residents of different communities, that more be very helpful for us as we build this database. So thanks in advance for sending us information if you happen to see it before we do. Great questions. We really appreciate it. Any others before we move along?
None that I've got here. Thank you.
Okay. Brenda, can you just mention in terms of, for the fact that our webinars are recorded and placed on our website, do you want to just kind of quickly talk about that and how if any audience member has a friend or a fellow Lion or a colleague at work that would be interested in this content that couldn't see it today, how they can access this?
Sure. So as you may see on your screen there, we are not only going to email the information and links to you after the webinar, but as soon as I have an opportunity to render the audio and the presentation that we've done here, I will be posting that on the Foundation's YouTube channel. You can visit our YouTube channel there at that address, that URL, or you can just go to youtube.com and search for Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, and you will find our channel where you can watch any of the videos of our past webinars. You'll be able to see this one later today and can check that information out. I encourage you to like and subscribe. If you like any of the individual videos, it helps us to increase awareness and have a better opportunity to reach a wider audience. And then as you subscribe, it means that you'll receive notifications for any of the videos as we post those and come out. And we have been working very hard over this past year to put together some really amazing videos. We have a gentleman who is helping us put those together, and just very proud of that particular work and love to share those. And then the other option that you have is finding the foundation on Facebook. Again, look for OLSHF or look up Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, and like and subscribe essentially, or follow our Facebook page so that you receive posts more frequently within your newsfeed, and you can see what we're doing more often as to what's going on in the community.
Thank you, Brenda. So, in closing, before we say goodbye, I do want to mention that during this Ways and Means Education Subcommittee meeting this morning, we did have an opportunity to hear other people's testimonies in support of other programs from all around the state. And I'm here to tell you that it was quite sobering to hear about these critically important programs that, of course, are similarly at risk of being significantly reduced or eliminated. They're all valuable, important programs, but I hope that you'll share our belief that a child's ability to see and to learn is about as important as any other issue that is out there. So thank you for participating today to hear about our efforts to preserve this fund and to continue to keep that promise to Helen Keller, and to the best of our ability to screen vision health for as many kids in Oregon as we possibly can. So thanks again. Mike, thank you. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Brad, as always, did an awesome job. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being part of our effort of helping kids in Oregon. We'll look forward to seeing you soon, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank you, Brenda.